Hi, and welcome to the Golden Age Report. Let's talk about the battlefield situation first here. In the Kherson direction, Ukraine attempted to cross the Dnieper River for sabotage and recon. Of course, yet again they met heavy artillery. You know, in our last video we mentioned we felt like the Russians were going to kick something off in the region. Well, if you take a look at this Rybar map, it certainly looks like they could be on the verge of getting something going. I mean, what would Ukraine do to respond? Pull troops from another region? In the Kupiansk sector, positional confrontations continue. Ukraine is pulling in reserves and equipping positions near Drorichna. Russian artillery continues to strike Ukrainian personnel deployment sites and firing positions. According to Alexander Merkulius, his sources say that artillery rate has taken a nosedive this week. Apparently the ratio is now 20-1 in favor of Russia. We keep mentioning this as a death trap. Zelensky was warned to stay out of this area. Southwest of Crimea, Russian armed forces are clearing the forested areas. They are eliminating reconnaissance and sabotage groups. This is certainly surprising news, as Ukraine has occupied this forest for months now. Stable control of the right bank of the Severodonetsk would provide tactical advantage in the sector of the front. Sounds like the 8 artillery systems that the MOD reported destroying in the past 24 hours is having an impact in the area. Wagner PMC assault units continue to methodically push through the Ukrainian defenses in Bakhmut. Heavy street fighting is underway on the outskirts of the meat processing plant. This is a well-fortified Ukrainian stronghold. We also noted that Ukraine has brought in manpats. The assault on Volodar continues. The Far East Marines continue intense fighting on the near approaches to town. The attack is supported by artillery of the Cascade unit. They are firing at Ukraine's positions in the multi-story buildings. We heard that Russia has brought in the heavy flamethrowers. Usually this means they're in the final stages of liberation. Apparently this weaponry leads to the surrender of many Ukrainians. Russia has already cut off the 2 main roads, and there's only one small road leading into the area. In the Zaporozhye direction, Russian troops continue their positional offensive against the Ukrainian defensive lines. Near Holyapol, Ukraine lost control over a number of strongholds near Chervon and Malinivka. At the Orinkiv-Kameskiev line, Russian armed forces are launching massive rocket and barrel artillery strikes on the Ukrainian positions. Russian command wisely does not go for direct assault and does not put the lives of servicemen at risk, preferring artillery fire instead. So large explosions were reported in Dnipro, Zaporozhye, Kherson, and Vilnetsk. Reports of incoming massive drone attacks in Ukraine are coming from the Russians out of the Azov Sea. We've been watching the air raid sirens on the live UA map off and on today, and every time I look, more and more missiles are incoming or air raid sirens are going off. We haven't seen the map this saturated. I'm not sure if we'll find out the details of these missile strikes, since almost no information is coming out of the region now that Zelensky has media on total lockdown. One thing is for certain, that the prediction that Ukraine was going to turn into a wasteland is really coming to light. So Zelensky approached Belarus and tried to create this non-aggression treaty, which is an interesting proposition, seeing as how Russia is stationed all throughout Belarus right now and is anticipating that something's going to happen in the region. Belarus kindly declined and said that they are with Russia. We're hearing that Belarus is 100% integrated with the Russian army at this point. It's thought that Kiev is highly concerned that Belarus will invade from the north at any moment. We're hearing that Russia is set to send in their robotic ground tech. Apparently they have infantry fighting vehicles, anti-mining, trench diggers. So we're just getting word that Russia is in its early phase of mixing in decoy missiles to spot air defense systems. So Russia's brand new Admiral Gorshkov has been out in the western Atlantic testing out its latest hypersonic missiles. So after testing these out first near the UK, now it's testing them out near the US. Seems like this is a bit of a warning. So it sounds like the coalition pitchfork was successful in prodding Schultz into handing over those tanks. Now even the U.S. is sending 31 of their maintenance Nightmare Abrams into the Ukrainian black hole. I heard a rumor that they're already in Poland. So here is a readout on all the Leopard tanks in service within the European countries. It looks like Greece has the most, but they are the older or Leopard 1s. Then Germany, Spain, Poland, Finland, and Sweden all have significant amounts of Leopard 2s. Note that Hungary has some Leopards too, but they won't be sending them over. Let's note that Ukraine's corruption news goes mainstream right after the CIA's visit to Zelensky. Another interesting visitor of Zelensky is Boris Johnson. He always shows up at interesting times. Sounds like he is just directly acting with his bosses within the shadow government. As far as we know, he's jobless right now. They are just getting blatant and right out in the open. Day by day, it just feels less necessary to hide this stuff. So things are really continuing to escalate, and you can really feel that it's just about ready to explode. Especially if you look this in conjunction with what's going on out in Syria. So France, Germany, the UK, and the US met in Geneva with a UN special envoy on the 24th to discuss this crisis in Syria. Yes, this is certainly a crisis for this group and would open up another front that would have them surrounded. I listened in on another UN meeting related to the Syria crisis. I have to say it was pretty interesting that they were calling for peace for the sake of the citizens. Seems like pretty interesting timing, as this crisis has been going on for many years now. Being speculated now that Turkey will exit NATO within the next 6 months or so. It's no surprise to hear this, as we've been saying that for the past few months. I don't think Turkey is in any hurry as they continue to try to squeeze out any benefits they can on the way out. They really have NATO in a tough spot, because this would severely weaken their alliance, as they would lose one of their top military powers. Like I've said before, the neocons have caught on and they're calling for their expulsion. So with France, things are really starting to heat up for them. They are now entering the arms race as well, and there's rumors that they're going to be increasing their spending moving forward by at least 50%. This comes at a time when there's millions in the streets, as, you know, the French loved their protesting, and the government is trying to squeeze a few more years out of these guys. This comes at the same time that they're being pushed out of their African colonies by the Russians and the Wagner Group. So out in the U.S., the mainstream is now turning on Biden. This certainly spells his doom, as it looks like they will sacrifice him at this point. They're getting him on this classified document issue. Seems like all the other acts of tyranny, warmongering, and collapsing of the economy were perfectly fine, but it seems the deep state's latest strategy is to have classified documents show up at government officials' houses when they want them out of there. I guess the deep state went too many times to the well on the sexual harassment playbook, and now they've realized that they need to mix it up a bit. So now it looks like we're going with the classified document route. They're even using that playbook on Pence now. So let's talk about this whole Google situation, since the feds in California are going to go after them. So to really understand the whole Google YouTube situation, we have to go back to 2015. Let's recall that Google's mission statement was "Don't do evil." I have to say that working with some Google tools, they provided a certain protection level to the individual that I haven't seen coming out of other tech companies. So when it became obvious that Hillary Clinton was not going to win, the DNC strong-armed Google into censorship. Almost immediately, the two founders stepped down, as their vision for Google had been hijacked by these warmongers. That brings us to today. Well, the feds in California are going after Google to break it up. They are going to rip it apart, not because of the stated reason of being a monopoly. That's been the case for quite a while here. But rather because it can't fully control it, and YouTube has let too much of the truth bleed out there. Let's note that California is joining the feds in this effort. I noticed during Biden's latest public appearance, Gavin Newsom was lurking behind him. It's widely speculated that he is next in line for the throne. Well, who will take the reins next? It's getting pretty obvious that they are done with Biden. Will they dare to put in the most unpopular, unqualified Harris? Or will they just look to tangle her up in this mess and go straight to someone that projects a little more power? Well, we'll have to see.